you do have to look into this opportunity cost. Why are people sort of not being able to unleash their leadership potential? And I've seen a lot of people missed out on this opportunity and not being able to unleash their leadership potential. They almost like living in regret. Oh, I could have been there, I could have been done that, but I didn't really get to do it.
Osman Mah, I'm so excited to have you on the podcast. I've been watching your journey from afar. So impressed by everything you do. We've had some recent interactions at UTS and at Optik, which honestly blew me away by what you're doing. So what I really need to know to ask you straight up is, what mission are you on right now? What's your mission that you're on?
Right here, Darren, or this way. It's really about helping others learn, grow, and flourish. And it took me a while to really come up with these 3 words that really resonate with me, but I think I'm here. I'm here that in a sense that these 3 words really resonate with everything that I do today. That is really helping people learn, grow, and flourish. And it come off my lived experience. And I realized that, people need to learn to grow. And the reason they grow is to flourish. And this cycle kind of continue on in each and every of our lives to a point where we can see it becomes a pattern that we can repeat, and that we kind of reach that fulfillment stage where we really see the momentum of it and the fruit of it and the meanings of it, right? So even though I'm saying that this is to help others learn, grow, and flourish, it's actually what I practice too for myself. So I'm very happy where I am with what I call my personal mission. And thanks for asking.
So tell me, learn, grow, and flourish. Are you saying that that is like a cycle, a flow chart, a series of steps that you go through in phases throughout your journey? Do you feel like that's something that you can teach someone how to do once, and then they can continually reapply that throughout their career and life?
I love that, Darren. It's that second part that you mentioned is something that I wouldn't say teach, I'd say facilitate someone to figure it out themselves, right? It might be different for someone else in terms of how they go through this in their life, but I believe there is certain pattern in their life that they can figure out, that they need and they can repeat throughout their life. I don't think it's a circle. I see more of a S-curve. There's a bit of a slow start as you're learning through in certain phase, and then you might grow a bit faster. And then when you flourish, you almost see that you kind of slow down a little bit, maybe to enjoy where you are at that phase in the S-curve, or maybe that you haven't got the opportunity as much as you do in the learning phase, so you kind of slow down in your growth as well. But maybe that you need a new challenge to really kick off another S-curve as well. So instead of a circle, I kind of see this as an S-curve, and it kind of mapped out to many transitions that I've gone through, and that's where this came from.
Yeah, I like that. So it's sort of like an S-curve, and then continually learning, growing, and flourishing. Yeah, almost like a wave. It's like a sine curve.
S-curve, and hopefully
Yeah,
S-curve kind of built on from each other, and then you can kind of just, ride through it.
yeah, I love that. So then, obviously, you have to practice what you preach. In your journey where you are now, where are you at the moment? Are you learning, growing, flourishing? Where do you think you are in that S curve?
I feel like at the moment, right in this phase of my journey, I feel like I'm growing. I don't think I'm fully flourishing as yet. There's quite a few things that I'm still working on, and really, you know, in that sense, Darren, you know what? Like, you really got me thinking whether this is a circle or this is an S curve. Maybe that circle that helps.
Sorry.
That's great, you know. That's why I love all these podcasts. You know, I don't come here just to preach or teach. You know, I really want to
Yeah.
have a conversation and, bounce idea off. So yes, Darren, maybe there is a little circle happening, that learn and grow circle that going on. Hand in hand, these two phases. So I feel like I'm always learning and I'm always growing. Fully flourishing is probably another stage. So what I do now, where I really help other people to do this, I'm writing a book. I'm setting up a few programs, and also I embarked on a PhD research just a few months ago. So you can see I'm almost like at the beginning, or maybe just after that beginning phase of learning. Uh, I feel like I'm in growth phase because I feel the momentum and I feel that things are coming together, which is a nice thing. So I'm on that growth trajectory. But to reach to the flourishing phase, I would say I have to give myself maybe a year or two.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I do like the S curve analogy. And I actually feel like there's multiple S curves. Maybe you're
Mm.
always at the same point, but whatever it might be that you're looking at, there's S curves in multiple directions and options, and you've got to go on that journey for each of them to just do whatever it is to its full potential. You
Yeah.
you mentioned PhD. Have to ask now. Tell me about your PhD.
Leadership in one word. In two words, leadership development. In a bit more sentencing way of saying it, is again to help others learn, grow, and flourish to become full leader in new context, culture, and country.
Um,
So I think, and I believe, and I've done a bit of research, early research, that there are a lot of material, literature, and whatnot on how to do leadership. But there's a little bit of gap in terms of how leaders emerge and go through the transition to become leaders.
uh,
My PhD is to look into that phase of poor leadership landscape of how do people become leaders. You know, we know a lot about how to do leadership when you get there, but how do you get there? How do you go through this transition? What are the things that you need to unlearn, maybe, and learn new things? And what are the things that you need to grow yourself, develop new skill, develop new network, maybe even develop new confidence before you can actually flourish as a leader and lead? So that's my PhD research.
Yeah, it's almost coming back to that S curve narrative. You've got to learn, grow, and flourish to find your way into a leadership role or position. And you're right, that little beginning part, that first little part of the S curve, that is the most formative part, because without that first step or that first experience or failure or whatever it is, I feel like you're right. There is a missing gap. There is something. There are these things you think, oh, that's a great leader, or they're a great leader, or this is what a leader should have. But emerging leadership sounds like a very fantastic topic to do a PhD on.
It is, and it's good that my application has been accepted. So there's something to it.
Good start.
I
Good
mean,
start.
it's a good start. That formative part of my own journey, it's been formed, but I still have to go through, different phases, confirmation, and whatnot. But I also want to add to what I've just said is that, the the formative part is really important. And through my lived experience, as well as, you know, the experience that I have been privileged to be part of, this is where I get to help other people through my coaching or through my mentoring program and the programs that I run at different university. I have seen that a lot of people have the potential, but they never had the opportunity and capacity, I would say, to unleash that potential. At the personal, individual level, there's a great missed opportunity, but also at the organization and society level, that is also a big missed opportunity cost, right? And there are a couple of reasons, and it will be part of my PhD research. And the other thing that I will add to this is, again, my life actually saying, actually to my wife, all these S-curves sounds to her like midlife crisis, a series of them. So when I started this S-curve of my PhD research, it's like another midlife crisis. But joke aside, like something that I really want to say in here is you do have to look into this opportunity cost. Why are people sort of not being able to unleash their leadership potential? And I've seen a lot of people missed out on this opportunity and not being able to unleash their leadership potential. And I was saying this, individually, they almost like living in regret. I could have been there, I could have been done that, but I didn't really get to do it. And there are multiple factors involved in this, and this is what I love doing, and really helping people to reach their potential.
So much to unpack, and I actually had a question for you, and I'm going to ask this probably in two parts. And I feel like I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but since we're on topic, I wanted to ask you about engineering leadership and how that may differ to traditional leadership. And then further, you talked about people regretting that, not being able to unleash their potential. Can you maybe walk us through that a little bit? Because for me, and I see it as well, you see a lot of people that have the most amazing potential, but they either don't have the confidence or the competence, or they're not going to back themselves to have the courage to be able to put themselves out there to actually unlock that potential. So if you can sort of maybe answer that in two parts, that would be amazing.
Yeah, the first part, engineering leadership, again, I'll put my lens on it. Instead of actually how to do engineering leadership, I would talk about how to become an engineering leader, right? And this is about going from an engineer to engineering leader. The leaders kind of get added on to being an engineer, just being an engineer. And there is a difference. There's a difference. The difference is that, yes, you can look at it from multiple perspectives. One perspective is that, as we know, engineers are great at problem solving and finding solution. And I feel like most engineers, at least early on in their professional career, would focus on solution, would focus on finding solution to a problem. But I think when they're starting to see a bigger picture of where the solution going towards contributing to solving a problem, and when they really see the problem, I feel from that perspective, they're getting into that leadership. They're getting into being able to influence others. They're getting into that space of pulling every things that they need to really provide that solution to the problem. So that's one aspect. And the other is that more on a pragmatic level, what I have seen is that a lot of great engineers who are good technically, fail to become engineering leaders. And again, that is what I am so passionate about, and what I've seen a lot as well, is that they fail to go through this transition period. They fail to unlearn what they need to unlearn, and they fail to learn the new skill and grow into that leadership role. And we've heard a lot about this, right? Like, I'm probably saying the same problem, talking about the same problem in a different perspective. But I think it is that transition, if not managed well, is the barrier to engineering leadership.
Yeah, you touched on a few points there, and I think in my mind, you're right. To become an engineering leader, you can't just have a technical solution. You can't just be solution focused. You need to maybe recraft the problem, break down the problem, and see that bigger picture. Do you think that engineering leadership is maybe tied to maybe engineering management, and then that's how becoming the leader can facilitate, or being a manager can leadership? Or do you still feel like there is the ability for people in that real technical role to unlearn, regrow, and then become that leader that potentially they need to have all of those all-round skills and soft skills and whatnot?
Yeah, I mean, like that's a good cliche differentiation. There is that good old you know differentiation between management and leadership. Management's being maintaining the status quo, and leadership being challenging the status quo and finding the new ways forward and whatnot. But to me, I think it's just a nuance that not worth differentiating. It is two sides of the same coin. Always, you need both. You need to be an effective manager as well as inspiring leader, and that's been my motto. And you need to be able to do both if you want to be an effective leader and an inspiring one as well. To answer your question, I think you need both. You have to do both. And in your journey to become one, you need to learn both as well. And both of them would be quite different from just being an individual contributor at the technical level.
Well, yeah, that's right. I think, to be able to be in that position of leadership, you have to have both engineering and management. And maybe if it's an engineering and leadership, that doesn't just encompass the engineering. Obviously, that's why it's a hybrid term. So, you were at Cochlea, I see you having a career, and you're doing that until 2020 or so. Why did you pivot to coaching, or what happened? What was the segue for you that made you go, I'm going to go do this now? Was it sudden, or was it, over a period of time? Walk us through that, and what made you change, I guess.
Yeah. Before that, as you were asking me this question, this thought came to me about engineering leader, management, and the technical capacity, if you like. I almost see like a triangle, sort of three connecting dots that makes you a great engineering leader. And if you want to take leadership as a mindset where how you see the world and where you want to lead your people to. So that's the mindset part of the equation. And then from the management perspective is about the structure and system and process in place. And technical is the skill set that you need. So it's sort of a three-leg stool that you really need to become a great engineering leader. So you need leadership as a mindset, engineering as a system structures to keep things efficient and effective, and technical skills that you really need to know what you need to do. So I think that kind of just popped up in my head. So I thought I would share that before I forget it.
I'm going to write that down.
Yeah. Thanks for helping me to come up with that great conversation.
Oh,
So now, my sort of transition. So yes, it is a big transition from being an engineering leader to a helping, mentoring educator. Uh, it's a big jump. So when I did that, as you said, almost 2 decades of engineering career at Cochlear, which is one of the best engineering company in Australia. Very stable. I grew up with the company almost. I call it home for a long time. Stable, nice environment, challenging, and then I left and then started my next chapter in my career. Whenever I talked about this, I use this analogy of jumping off a cruise liner onto a speedboat. Right. So cruise liner was comfy, stable, uh, and steady. But now I'm on a speedboat. Yes, it's fun. I get to control my journey a bit more, but always up and down, right? And how that happened, well, to be quite honest, it was through a redundancy. So so that's around towards the end of COVID, there was a restructure. So my role was made redundant. So even though I was offered a different position in different part of the company, I decided to leave. After nearly 2 decades, I thought was about
wow.
time.
Bittersweet.
Time. Yeah. So I was becoming part of the furniture, and I needed a new S curve.
Yeah.
Darren, I needed a new S curve, and I feel like I was really flourishing, but kind of plateauing out, stabilizing too much. So when that redundancy news came, it was a bit devastating, to be quite honest. But I thought it was a great opportunity, a great opportunity to kick off another chapter in my professional career and kick off that new S curve. And again, my wife really told me that at the time you were really going through your midlife crisis. But it is a big change, and I kicked off a new S curve. And looking back, it was a scary moment to jump off that cruise liner and jump onto the new, speedboat. But I think I would never regret that now. I'm still enjoying it. I'm still enjoying this up and down. But another analogy that if I could offer here is that, the Cochlear part of my journey was a big S curve, but probably just one. But now, as you mentioned before, I've got multiple S curves happening, and I'm at different phase in each of them, and really enjoying myself in terms of being able to explore, stay curious, stay alive with a lot of that passion that I want to pursue. So that's the story, and I'm loving it.
Yeah, it's amazing. I love the analogy. And you're right. I feel like, it sounds like it was bittersweet, the redundancy and the option. And then just having that moment to go, hold on, what am I doing? Am I becoming part of the furniture? And really challenge yourself again into that S curve as you talked about. And I guess, I can see in your journey there, and I looked at your LinkedIn banner and it says new culture, new country. And I wonder at what time, you were on the cruise liner, maybe you jumped on the speedboat, you got to a new country quicker. We were on the speedboat when you wrote that. Tell us a little bit about that new culture, new country, and what that means to you.
I wrote it when I was on the speedboat.
You were on the speedboat.
We were on a speedboat.
Yeah.
I was on a speedboat. But I'll tell you this, that was when I started reflecting on my journey up until that point, and started to help others to be able to kick off their own S curve and go through that in a faster and less frustrating way. When I look back, and also realize that through this S curve, there's a lot of um, up and down as well. And uh, I did electrical engine. I started in electrical engineering, so that's always in me as well. And this S curve ideas come from my electrical background. It's almost like a sigma, little signal. And in um, electrical engineering, we always deal with noise, and you can almost see noise superimposed on this signal S curve, and those little noise that kind of get superimposed. Um, in another way of looking at them is that they are barriers and challenges that you have to go through in your journey, and we always do have them. We always do face them, right? And they come from different sources, like these noises would do. And one of the sources is the culture misalignment. And again, it's got different layers. There is, at the individual personal level, personality differences, right? And at the organizational level, there are organizational culture differences. At the national level or society level, there are ethnic culture differences, right? I'll give you a few examples so that you see what I'm talking about. Back at Cochlear, I did try to kick off a few different S-curves in my own way. Now looking back, one of the things that I did is that I actually started in R&D, research and development, and stayed there for about 11, 12 years, if not 13 years from memory. Then I moved into manufacturing. And the reason I moved into manufacturing is, again, I felt that I was plateauing in R&D and I needed a new challenge. I wanted to challenge myself. So I went into manufacturing. And one of my mentors in manufacturing, when I got there, he actually called me and then he gave me this advice, which I didn't really appreciate or understand at the time. And it's exactly to my earlier point. He said, his name is Kevin. Kevin said, Osmond, there's a culture difference, and you need to learn to adapt to the new culture. So I didn't quite know what he meant. But then I learned the hard way. And one example that I would say is that in R&D, is almost everything we need to write it down. We need to document it, right? In manufacturing, we have what we call morning stand-up. We put what we need to do on the day on the whiteboard. The next day come and morning stand-up is every day, is the daily stand-up. The next day, when you come to the same whiteboard, if you have done the item, and you should have done because it's a daily thing, if not, you kind of in trouble anyway. But if you have done it, you wiped it off, right? It's a small thing, but it didn't sit well with me. I wanted to capture it. I wanted to document it. I wanted to write it down. And I did. And it was slowing me down, right? Until much later, and I was like, no one cares about it in manufacturing. What they care about is getting the job done.
Yes.
Right? But it's different. It was different in R&D. R&D, yes, for a good reason. You need to write it down because you were sparking ideas here and there, right? You need to capture them. And there's a lot of discussion that took place in meetings. You need to capture them. And some of these things become patents and IPs and whatnot. So documentation is really important, but not in manufacturing. Manufacturing is all about getting things done. Get the bloody things done, and that's it. Move on, right? If there's a problem, solve it. It's not documented. You solve it, right? But in R&D, is if there's a thought, you capture it, document.
Yeah.
So that is at the organizational level, right? So you need to be able to understand these culture differences and be able to quickly adapt to it. And if you, the quicker you can adapt to it, the quicker you will be able to grow into that role and flourish there. That's what I am.
36% of listeners won't subscribe to this podcast, and that's a real shame. If you want to help me share the stories and help others learn and grow, then please like and subscribe. You know, it's quite funny because it reminds me about when I was working in Vietnam, and you'd have a meeting with like 30 people in this meeting, and you had to go around the meeting room one person at a time. They would do their report, say their bit, next person report, and you couldn't talk, you couldn't ask questions. It was just they'd do their report, say what they needed. They would be taking the minutes seriously. And then someone, usually the manager or the director, would say, "Oh, we've got this thing, whatever it is that we need to resolve." Or I would say, "Hey, yep, thank you everyone, but these are the things that everyone needs to agree, or we need to work on to move forward." And then usually the director would just point at someone and say, "What do you think?" And they'd say, and they'd probably fumble around a little bit and wouldn't say anything. And what do you think? "Oh, yeah, maybe we should do this." Okay. And you get to the end of the meeting and nothing would happen. You had no idea why you had the meeting. It was just basically a report. And then afterwards, someone would come over to me and be like, "Oh, hey, about that thing you mentioned, we should do this." I'm like, "Oh, that's a great idea. Yeah, let's do that." I'm like, "Why do you say in the meeting?" "Oh, no. But that's not the time to talk about it." So I soon learned that there was no point even having meetings because it was just this big people talking and nothing really happened. And you're better off just going to people one-on-one outside of that formal room. And that's how you got stuff done.
Yes.
So it's very strange because, the meetings I'm used to are fast-paced, spitballing, workshops, plans on a table, people talking about strategy. Yes, some meetings, you have to go through a set minutes, but most are more collaborative, which is obviously a very different culture. So I could see how that would be, something very difficult to navigate.
Yeah, that's beautiful, Darren. It reminds me of the other example that I often use, because you're pointing out the national culture, right? With that, and in Australia, as you know it, we talk over each other, and that's quite normal. Who cares? Like you don't even put your hands up. You just like
No.
yeah, like if you walk into a meeting room, you don't even know who the boss is. Like everyone's egalitarian culture, but you could almost call it as a loud culture, right? And that kind of reflective of the society that we're in as well, right? But it because I come from Burma, Southeast Asian country, very similar to Vietnam. But the home culture is also is an influencing factor because at home, if you actually go into one of these Southeast Asian or even East Asian, family, you'll see that people would actually sit when you look at them sitting at the dinner table, you can see people sit on assigned seats, and then everyone will actually wait for each other to talk. And then there's an order in which people actually speak up, And, I still remember my younger days, little kid, kids being kids, you try to jump on the table and try to pick the food, and we got smacked. You can't. You got to let the elders pick the food first. And the same way, you can't talk before the elders. You got to get the permission from the elder or let them speak first. And these are culture influences, sometimes we carry into our workplace. And if that workplace has this sort of loud culture that I mentioned, then you'll be sitting there waiting for your turn to speak up, and that will never come.
You won't get it.
You won't get it. But that's a real implication in terms of, if you're not aware of this, the perception that you're giving now, maybe that people are like, wait, Osmond, he doesn't have a clue about these things, or he doesn't have
he's got no opinion.
No opinion, or he doesn't have the confidence.
Why are they in the meeting if they're not?
Let's not invite him into the meeting.
That's right.
He doesn't
Yeah,
add
like,
value.
no point coming to the next
No
one.
point coming to the meeting. Just leave him out.
Yeah, and then you
Put,
isolate.
put, put him back into the lab.
Yeah,
That's what
yeah.
you want.
Go back
Yeah.
to your desk.
Yeah, you do like be in front of the oscilloscope. Just go and measure those little signal and come back with the report. That's where you add values. In
Yeah,
fact, I'm
I
just waiting. I've got loads of ideas that I want to give out, but I'm just waiting. Darren, that was my actual lived experience, right? And I had to learn the hard way. I had to learn the hard way that if you don't speak up, you don't get the opportunity. So
well,
speaking up is very valued here.
so there's definitely two things. I mean, I was gonna, and I'll probably ask it again about, maybe your advice about someone wanting to unleash their potential. And I feel like we've just unpacked it in that very
Mm.
conversation, or at least one of them. But without maybe diving into it, because I sort of know your journey about new culture and new country. And you mentioned you're writing a book, and feel free to plug it. Um, I wanted to unpack that, and you don't have to obviously, give us all the book in its entirety, but maybe just give us some insights into what that journey was like for you. Maybe hopefully to inspire others who might be migrant engineers or international students or whatnot, who might be looking to your story to maybe give them some inspiration to get through what they're going through.
Yeah, I would love to, and thanks for the opportunity, Darren. Uh, essentially, a lot of the things that I've talked about so far is, and it will be in the book. And the book, I'm still figuring out the best title, to be honest. It come down to two titles being shortlisted, so I'm almost there. One is leadership, new culture, new country. And the other is journey to the West versus journey in the West. And I'm kind of leaning towards the latter one because there's an emotional attachment with me. And I am hoping that there will be emotional rapport or attachment with many of the targeted audience of the book, as you mentioned, international students, migrant engineer, or migrant professional, or anyone who's going from one culture, one country to another culture, another country. The title, Journey to the West, comes from a Chinese folktale or in a movie. Anyone who grew up in Asia in the 80s, 90s would really know this title very well because they would have grown up watching this. And this is like 50-part series talking about a Chinese monk going from China to India, which is on the west side of China, right? Hence, journey to the West, to learn more about Buddhism, to seek knowledge, enlightenment. Along the way, he had to face a lot of trials and tribulation, barriers and challenges, and he had to overcome those to get to his destination. So we grew up with that. I can even still hear the theme song in my head, don't ask me to sing it. I'm not a good singer.
I'm not asking you to sing.
So that's the emotional attachment. And I went through that journey coming to Australia, which is so-called West. I had to overcome a lot of challenges. Even as nuances as getting a visa. It wasn't easy. I'll tell you this, right? Getting a visa is winning a lotto for many of us back in the day. It's probably a bit easier now, but back in the day, it wasn't a straightforward thing. It was not easy at all. It was very challenging. So getting a visa to Australia was winning a lotto almost, right? So to get that, we had to overcome a lot of challenges. But here's the thing, right? Even back to the movie, we don't know what happened after the monk got to India, to the West, to his destination. We never figured out. That wasn't about that story. But I can tell you that it was going to be different. He would have faced different challenges, different barriers, different trial and tribulation. Similarly, when we got to Australia, to the West, we suddenly faced entirely different challenges, trial, tests, tribulation. Right? It's not the same at all. It's different. And at least for me, took a while to figure out that to overcome it, or to start with awareness of these new tests, trial and tribulation, barriers and challenges were different, and therefore needed a new set of skill, knowledge to overcome them. Right. So my book is going to be about that, finding out that the barriers, biases, and challenges you're going to face in the West is going to be different to the ones that you face while you were coming over here. And therefore, you need to kick off a new S-curve to learn new things, and including unlearning a few things that are not going to serve you anymore, and grow into this part of your life, this new journey, so that you can actually flourish faster in less frustrating way and with more fulfillment.
I'm sure that there's a lot of people out there that are super interested in that story. I mean,
I hope so.
And, I mean, although I will say, and it's probably a very, maybe me thing to say, but technically Australia is south of Asia. So I think you might have to work down under into the title.
Down under, yes. I know it's going to be contentious when I say Australia is the West. So,
look, I mean, down under works, because I don't think anyone's really getting geographical on it, but obviously everyone loves down under. So
I reckon.
But I wanted to ask you about,
not going to hurt. A little bit of controversy not going to hurt, Darren.
Oh, of course not. Of course not. No. I wanted to ask you about Optik. I was fortunate enough to, be involved in what you're doing there, and it was super awesome. I loved it. I had the best time, and just seeing all these bright young engineering minds, and at least for me, just talk about it very quickly because I think it's quite important. But to be in a room of young engineers is one thing. To openly challenge them in a speech, in a keynote, in a whatever you want to call my presentation, and then to see them respond, and to see them come back to me and accept the challenge, for me was super insightful into what I could see you're trying to create there. And I was very impressed. So I guess just openly and publicly, I wanted to thank you for the work that you're doing there, even though obviously it's nothing to do with me, and congratulate you on it, because even if there was just a 1% of what you've done there that enabled those young engineers to respond to that challenge, I feel like you've already done your job there.
Oh, thank you so much. That goes to my heart, Darren. And I really appreciate your time that you give back to them, to this new generation. They did respond to your challenge, and they're still buzzing with that. All the insights and information and inspiration that you have shared. So thanks a lot, and keep coming back, Darren. And also, one thing that I want to share about Optik is, at the core of what I do at Optik is also very much about helping people learn, grow, and flourish. And similar to the journey to the West and journey in the West analogy, is the same things are happening. And, I talk about culture differences, the same things happening here. University or academic culture is different to a workplace culture. Some people get it straight away. A lot of people don't. One example that I will give is that throughout your university, you're almost brainwashed to follow instruction and work towards a rubric. There's a subject outline, there's a marking criteria. Where would you find those in a workplace?
Uh,
You don't. And a lot of young engineers don't figure that out until much later. They learn the hard way. And I don't want them to learn the hard way. And Optik at the core of it is exactly raising that awareness of those differences that they're gonna face. Again, it's similar thing, how they're gonna go through the journey in the academic landscape to get to the destination of graduating is going to be different when they get into the workforce to get to whatever destination they want to get to in their career, right? And they need to be aware of it. And the quicker they're aware of it, the better for them. And that's what we have found. So again, it's the same thing that I'm trying to achieve here, following the same passion of helping others grow and flourish. And, through this journey, I'm hoping to bring up more leaders through this program as well. I don't want them to be just engineers. I want them to be engineering leaders, as you have said in the beginning. So that's what Optik is about at the core of it, at least from my personal perspective.
Yeah, it's amazing. And, I just came up with a really cool idea, which I'm actually going to pitch to you after this podcast.
Okay.
So I won't put it out now. And likely it probably would have already happened by the time this is aired, but watch this space. I've got a really, really interesting idea. So I will be pitching it to you after we end this. I've written it down, don't worry.
Yes.
So tell me, we talked about unleashing potential. You obviously work with a lot of young engineers from different backgrounds, with a lot of diversity. It's very hard because a lot of people say to me, "Oh, what's your one piece of advice?" Or, what would you do if you were a young engineer? And I can often answer that, but I wanted to pitch it back to yourself. A young engineer, maybe in your Optik program, maybe not, maybe over in Perth or wherever, Northern Territory or in regional Australia, trying to make their mark, trying to get on that learning journey on their own S curve. What sort of advice would you have for them, maybe in that, their formative years? Maybe they're at university trying to find their way, maybe get their first job, or graduated and finding it really hard to find a job, or maybe even a migrant engineer who's come here, got their visa, and then, like you mentioned, is like, whoa, like, how do I navigate the job market?
Yeah. Be like water.
Bruce Lee.
That's it.
That's it.
The master.
Yeah.
I love it. And I think there's a lot of wisdom in it as well. It's come from ancient Chinese philosophy. I think he would have attributed that to someone in his own way. And I have practiced it and in retrospect, mapped it out to my own journey, and I could see that I would have been much better in terms of, overcoming the biases and barriers that I faced along the way. And as I always say in some of my coaching and training, it is not about faking. It is about being aware and flexible. It is about finding the balance between standing out, being true to yourself, that is, and fitting in, connecting with the culture, the land, and the society that you are operating in. It's never one or the other. It's not either or. It's both. It's both being yourself, true to yourself, standing out in that way. And everyone's unique and everyone stands out in their own way. So you don't have to choose between that and connecting to the land, culture, and the people that you're going to be working with and in and on, right? So that's something that I grappled with in early days of my career, that I was trying to choose one or the other. Maybe I have to fit in, and I try so hard. And then I have to stand out. I try too hard standing out, and neither work. And when I figured that I don't have to choose, I can be both. And I can be water, like water, I can kind of fit into where I go, but I'm still water. It doesn't matter which shape I take, I'm still water.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's why I love this analogy. And therefore, I try to use it in my coaching. And I have seen the result of it. And a lot of people that I managed to help kind of embrace this idea, and not just students. And I've worked with seasoned professionals as well. So one of my target audience is those people who are trying to become the first-time leader, whether that's engineering leaders or whatnot, being in a leadership role for the first time. And they need to be able to see different challenges coming their way as well. And if they can be like water, they can go faster and maybe more ferociously as well.
I love that. Being dynamic. Bruce Lee reference. I'm a big Bruce Lee fan when I was a kid, and obviously now still love Bruce Lee. And yeah, I can really appreciate that, because you're right. You can't have any rigid shape or form. I think even throughout your career, it's one of those things that you'll always find the opportunities in the fissures and the cracks and the gaps and niche areas that no one else is in. I think that's where you can have the greatest leverage. I talk about that a lot. So yeah, I really like.
I'm gonna have to pick on that thread, Darren. I'm gonna have to pick on that thread. Fishes in the crack. I haven't quite heard of that phrase at that stage, but I kind of get what it means. And I just want to link that to the idea of hanging out on the edges, which I just read a couple of days ago in Adam Grant's new letter. And it's so true. The growth's going to happen when you hang out on the edges.
Yeah.
So finding that niche and finding the next step just beyond where you are is where you're going to see the growth. And this fitting in, standing out is almost like you kind of bouncing in and out of the edges as well. So thanks for sharing that phrase, and I love it.
Yeah, well, feel free to use it. I'm sure it will only add to your be like water. So
because it goes with the analogy or be like water, right? So,
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So Osmond, you've mentioned a PhD, a book. I see you're at Optik. You're doing 2 or 3 other things. And I always like to ask guests, like, what's next? What's your next challenge? I feel like you've sort of answered that in passing, but is there anything for you that you can see on that horizon? You can see the book, you can see the PhD. Well, what is that going to mean for you, and what is maybe beyond that horizon? What is that third mountain, so to speak?
Yeah, I mean, something that I've been developing and trying to get better at is my keynote speeches. And I come to really loving it. And it is something that's been with me for a long time that in my own way haven't been able to unleash. Maybe it's the opportunity that I'm waiting for. Maybe the more confidence that I need in myself, my own battle of imposter syndrome. Who am I to get up to the stage and talk? Whatever that is, I haven't been able to do it. So I've done a fair bit of public speaking and keynote speeches, but I like to really go all out on this one. And part of the journey, whether that is PhD or my book, it is also about finding the opportunity to share my ideas and thinking through public speaking and keynote speeches as well. So what's next? I'm hoping that I could be able to unleash my public speaking and share my insight, information, and inspiration through that forum.
Awesome. I very much look forward to seeing your book. I'm very excited about, your work in emerging leadership. And then obviously, keynote, yeah, I mean, you know, when you find people that have a very interesting background, I always talk about backstory. Your backstory is amazing and you're able to bring so much to the table. So, Osman Mah, I can't wait to see what you do next. I really hope we do something between now and then. I'm very, very happy to collaborate. And thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Thank you so much, Darren, for this opportunity and this conversation. As I said, I came into this conversation with a very open-minded because I wanted to learn from you. I'm very much very I admire a lot what you have done so far as well, and you have got your own lovely backstory as well. And there's no shame in admitting that I follow you on LinkedIn, Darren. I'm one of the first few that I like your posts. So there we go. That's the
That helps.
testament to what I just said. So I'm not saying for the sake of saying. So please keep doing what you're doing. And as you have proven, there's a lot of people benefiting from the work that you do. Even the networking event that you put together, a lovely event, 3-degree separation. I enjoyed it. Again, thanks for inviting me there. That's another great work that you do. And I could go on and on and on and about how engineers do not network. So please keep doing what you're doing, and thanks for the opportunity again.
Awesome, mate. Thanks so much, and look forward to catching up soon.
Lovely.
Thanks so much for listening. I really hope you enjoyed that podcast. Please like and subscribe. It helps us reach so many more aspiring engineering professionals and entrepreneurs. You can find us on LinkedIn, Spotify, and YouTube.